Aviation began as an exhilarating dream. Singapore's commercial aviation history opened its first page in 1930 when a plane touched down at Seletar Air Base. It signaled the emergence of Singapore as a strategic pit stop for airplanes travelling through the region. Shortly after, the colonial government built the first civilian airport in Singapore. With its proximity to both the town centre and the sea coast, Kallang Basin was chosen over Changi to be the location of the new airport. Designed by Frank Dorrington Ward, Chief Architect of the Public Works Department, the Kallang Aerodrome opened to great fanfare on 12 June 1937.
Kallang was conceived of from the very beginning as a purpose-built modern airport. So in that sense, it really marked Singapore's birth as an aviation hub. The airport itself was designed to resemble an airplane in flight. It had two wings and a central tower. And when you entered the airport from Geylang Road, you would come down a very wonderful long curving driveway that gave you a sense of a sweeping arrival.
Built on over 100 hectares of reclaimed land, the airport featured the iconic control tower as well as a unique dome-shaped landing field.
To build an airport, they had to reclaim land. And to reclaim land, they had to dredge up hundreds of tons of coral from the surrounding seas to build a foundation for the circular runway. And the reason why the runway was built in a circular format was it was an era of planes that could land also in water and also on land. So by having a circular runway, you could take off and land according to where the wind was blowing from. And along the side of the airport, there's this ramp that goes into the water, so that a plane that would land in Singapore Harbour could then propel itself up the ramp onto the land and then discharge passengers.
I started the flight in Kallang Airport in 1951 with the Malaysian Airways until the changes to MSA and SIA until 1980 when I retired. I was flying for many airports those days. But this terminal, of course, impressed me. It's very unique, because it's so close to the city and the structure itself. The people can check in one building, not separated. There's up there, of course, a control tower. There's a beautiful view, you can see that they're so visible to all directions.
Mr. Wong Kim Fong, a long-time childhood friend of Captain Ho, also used to work at the Kallang Airport back in 1947.
Yeah, I came back here nearly after 50 years and happy to see the same building still standing around. I came here in July 47. We were flying the six-seater, so there wasn't much traffic. When they changed to DC-3, then the traffic builds up. That was the time then I was here. The restaurant was at this corner here, and then upstairs were DCA offices, Department of Civil Aviation. And these two side buildings were engineering and stores. But the main traffic site is on the ground floor, the second half of this site.
A throwback to early modernist British architecture. The building was complemented by a control tower and two side blocks with attached hangars.
Kallang Airport was groundbreaking in terms of construction. It was one of the first large-scale steel-framed buildings and was also very innovative in terms of the use of glass, allowing for transparency so they could see the airfield. When you go to the main entrance, above the doorway, there is this picture of a lion with wings. And the main gateway to the driveway, you would see in the center of the driveway this gate with the city crest, showing the lion on a castle on an island with a coconut tree.
The original route was Singapore, KL, Ipoh, Taipei, Penang. And then Penang back to Taipei, Ipoh, KL, Singapore. And later on, we extended the flight to Medan. From Penang, we crossed to Medan, and Medan back to Singapore. One flight clockwise, one flight anti-clockwise. So 2 flights a day.
Lauded as the finest airport in the British Empire, the Kallang Airport instantly captured the imagination of the public and quickly became one of the most recognizable and popular landmarks in Singapore.
Mentor Prime Minister used to fly out of here. I flew him a couple of times, and one time he came back. Mrs. Lee was there holding Lee Hsien Loong on his arms. I happened to be flying that flight, and I saw them meeting each other. It's very touching.
Our first flight takes off at about 7. All of us have to report here by 6 o'clock. So we're half sleepy when we come. So some of us have to get 2 alarm clocks just to make sure we come back in time. But the plane cannot wait for us, you see. Must be here early to make sure that the plane is serviced.
Kallang Airport probably pioneered the use of a double volume passenger space. Of course, you had that for a sense of airiness, ventilation and light. This double volume passenger hall was also carried through to Paya Lebar Airport from the 50s, where they had a double volume space in the arrival hall.
With the growing popularity of air travel, it soon became apparent that the Kallang Airport could not adequately serve the increasing numbers of flights and passengers. By 1951, a decision was made to build a new airport in Paya Lebar.
At that time, of course, I was quite naive. I was thinking, why do we move with such a beautiful airport so close to the city instead of going to Paya Lebar, you know? Of course, we have to give way to progress. More and more airlines are coming, bigger and bigger aircraft.
One has to acknowledge the changes in aircraft technology from the 50s onwards. It was the dawn of the jet age, and with jet airplanes, you needed much longer runways than Kallang could provide. Kallang was hemmed in on the south by the sea, and to the north and east by industries, shophouses, homes. So if Kallang had expanded, you would have sterilized a lot of the city centre from redevelopment.
Kallang Airport, of course, give me a lot of sentiments, you know, because we work very closely together with our staff, our engineering, our catering, our traffic, cabin crew. We are so close, you know.
Those days, there's no comparison. We work like a family.
An ex-traffic officer at Kallang Airport, Mr. Wong still remembers his old colleagues fondly. Until today, Captain Ho and Mr. Wong share their sentiments on work ethics and the environment at Kallang Airport.
For most Singaporeans of my generation or my parents' generation who grew up after Kallang was closed in the mid-50s, the enduring view is that from Nicol Highway. As you go past Nicol Highway, you would see this circular control tower of Kallang Airport and its 2 wings. That is exactly the plan that Changi has today. Good design is timeless because it gets repeated and copied. If you look at Changi, you can think of Kallang.
The Kallang Airport was closed in 1955. Today, the original terminal building and its 2 office wings house the headquarters of the People's Association. Many are curious about the future of their beloved airport and the revitalization plans of the Kallang area.
Yes, it will be conserved and it will be restored. And you will still see the control tower from Nicol Highway for many years to come. Buildings are one of the key artifacts of any civilization. Through a civilization's buildings, you can see its history, its culture, its achievements. And therefore, for any country to sustain itself, it must have enough of its important buildings protected for the future so that its people can have a sense of the past, which will then drive them towards the future.
We have some sort of a museum to display the development of aviation. This is the birthplace of Singapore aviation that make us worldwide so well known that our next generation, they can benefit.
I'm the last of the Mohicans. All my colleagues have gone west. I don't have anyone except Captain Ho, one of the few. The rest have all passed away.
Although no longer a bustling airport, the iconic control tower serves as a fond reminder of Singapore's initial foray into the aviation industry. The iconic stature of Kalang's control tower would in 20 years be matched by a new control tower resembling a king's scepter. After Kallang was deemed to be insufficient for growing aviation demand, Singapore's airport moved to a new site in Paya Lebar in 1955. However, after less than 2 decades, Paya Lebar Airport was also unable to cope with the increase in air traffic and with the unexpected arrival of over 4 million annual passengers. In their search for a new location for the airport, the government went back to Changi, which was previously considered alongside Kallang as a possible site. Changi offered a distinct advantage over Kallang and Paya Lebar, as it was not located in a major residential area or city centre. This made it easier for future expansion plans to the airport. Built at a cost of over 1 billion Singapore dollars, Changi Airport welcomed its first flight on July 1981.
We wanted to create this place. It's like a sort of a city within a city of an airport, and so that people will want to come and visit Changi Airport, whether they're sending people off or not. The basic concept of Terminal 1, the passenger processing must be easy movement, straight flow, comfort for the passengers to go in, check the counter, get to the security immigration and to the gates. The building becomes form follows function.
I was working in Paya Lebar in 1959 until the airport shifted to Changi in 1981. In Paya Lebar, I was employed as an operation assistant. By 1976, I was the apron superintendent, and I was put in charge of the mobilization team, the team that will mobilize this ground support equipment to shift from Paya Lebar to Changi. It took me 3 days to shift and to ensure that this equipment reached Changi by the time we opened for the first aircraft, which came in sometime about 7 in the morning.
The first flight was by Singapore Airlines, a rescue flight from KL to Singapore. Everybody was getting to the waving gallery. For us, we are lucky we are inside, so we can go and see, okay, which gate they are coming in, because we are also very interested to see, is there any problem people checking in or not? Like the bridges, will it fix onto the aircraft or not? Things like that.
Achieving what its predecessors couldn't, Changi Airport quickly became a favourite icon symbolising the success of Singapore's commercial aviation history.
Compared to Paya Lebar, of course, it was a vast improvement. In Paya Lebar, all passengers have to walk to the aircraft, climb the steps and get to the aircraft. With Changi, when we opened, we had 22 of such aerobridge stands, we call it, or contact gates, and where passengers can just walk from the terminal and into the aircraft without having to take any bus or climbing up any passenger steps. Of course, the baggage system has to increase in size. I have more gates to play with. In other words, I got more parking space to play with. So there was no question of worrying about an aircraft coming in without having a parking stand. And the other interesting feature we had was at the arrival hall, we had 2 aquariums.
We have garden, flower boxes here, fountains. We also put in some art pieces, like the sculpture. To enhance the beauty of this 4-story void area of this Terminal 1, we added this Milo Quartz fountain, 4-story high, up to the ceiling of the departure hall. And this is one of the tallest Milo Quartz fountain at the time.
Besides a spacious terminal, Changi also attracted a great deal of attention with the design of its control tower that became an instant postcard image for Singapore in the 80s.
We decided in Singapore that we should have a control tower which is away from the building to make it as a feature for Changi Airport. You can see the core is very slim and the shape on top tapers out, housing all the control equipment as well as the controllers for the airport. With the radar on top, then it looks a beautiful feature. In Terminal 1, we have this special sunken car park and a dedicated pickup point. The reason for the sunken car park is that when the trees grow to the full height, like right now, we still can, from departure level and arrival level, we can still look toward the open area and the control tower. The roof level was created to shade the arrival pickup point for the passengers. So as you approach the terminal building from here, you can see a beautiful long flower box, linear shape in front of Terminal 1.
Changi Airport proved to be a hit, not only with Singaporeans, but also with international air passengers. In 1988, Changi won its first Best Airport Award in a poll conducted among frequent air travellers.
Building is easier to achieve in the sense that if you have the funds, you can build any type of terminal you want. But you do not have the right people to manage the airport, that airport can turn to a white elephant.
With the immense popularity of air travel over the years, Singapore built not one, but two more world-class airports to welcome the Globetrotters. The opening of Changi Airport Terminal 3 in January 2008 realized the last phase of the 1975 master plan. Able to handle a capacity of 70 million passengers per annum, the airport currently sees about half of their projected passenger volume. After enjoying the Changi experience for nearly 30 years, Singaporeans and air passengers alike were eager to find out what the newest terminal at their beloved airport would be like. To Singaporeans, the newest terminal brings a breath of fresh air to an old familiar standard.
This is the cup-side, the departures cup-side of Terminal 3, right? And you can see the glass facade of the terminal building itself, 300 meters long glass facade, is mullion-free. It's only supported by cables. The oversail of the roof, from inside, it appears to float right out to the outside. Let's then move through into the check-in hall itself by this glass box airlock here. The cup-side atrium creates this volume. It brings light from the roof all the way down to basement 2, which is about 8 meters below the arrivals level, which is then again, of course, 6 meters below the departures. What it does is here, it creates a series of open spaces that allow, again, like I said, light to be brought all the way down to the basement. But at the same time, you have this idea of bridges. It's almost like a threshold of your journey to leave Singapore to your destination.
Consistently winning awards and accolades for being one of the best airports in the world, the arrival of Changi's newest terminal set yet another milestone in its short but illustrious history. But what does the new terminal hold for the people who pass through it on their way to work every day?
When I was young, airport used to be a place where it fascinated me because it was the beginning of an interesting adventure, interesting journey. But of course, ever since I started working as an airline pilot, it's been a transition to work most of the time. But of course, annually when I go on holiday, the old feeling of traveling and adventure still comes back.
Movement through the terminal building is a key aspect of the design. So the design allows passengers to move as smoothly and as easily as possible through the building, and to move within an environment that's as comfortable visually as well as psychologically. So the idea of making spaces that are large, yet all interconnected, interesting spatial volumes that you get.
SkyTrains allow for seamless movement between the three terminals, which is key for Changi Airport's goal to draw transit passengers. Passengers arriving at one terminal can transfer easily to another terminal to depart.
But the first time I saw T3, I was amazed at the size and the magnitude of the space that was around me. A lot of new materials that have been used, like steel and glass, which gives you a feeling of spaciousness. Sure, it's very similar to a lot of new airports around the world, but the difference is that it's still very warm in spite of a lot of metal and a lot of glass.
People who come here who have got no business as far as flight is concerned, but they want to come to enjoy the space. You can see children playing, a nice air conditioning space, and good views out onto the apron to look at the aircraft. We are in the southern end of the check-in hall, departure check-in hall in Terminal 3. And you're looking in the background is the green wall, 14-meter height green wall, stretching the whole backdrop of the check-in hall. And of course, you can see the skylighted features. Daylight coming in, you can see open, bright spaces in the main check-in hall.
The roof is a soft, porous layer with automatic self-adjusting reflector panels from which natural light pours in to provide a soothing ambience throughout the day.
Typically in terminal building, the arrivals hall, given that it's always on the lower level, will definitely not enjoy the kind of volume that you get in the departures hall. So the drama is always created in the departures hall. But for that very reason then, actually we have opened up the floor here. This floor space is very precious. We could use it for concessions, for shops. But then once we open up the floor, it creates a new dimension altogether in the space. Looking down the main arrival departures concourse. This one here you can see is also the new large aircraft gates. The main feature of this concourse is that it's much higher in terms of ceiling height compared to the piers in T1 and T2. This is easily 5.5 meters. And then we have a feature ceiling over the travelators. And you've got full height glass either side of the check-in hall. And even the feature for the gate lounge, you can see the glass is has a slight curve in it, to create, again, interesting spatial volumes within the pier. Otherwise, you get a very long, continuous pier.
To many people, airports are places of transient meetings and fleeting encounters. But for many Singaporeans, Changi Airport has long been both a public playground and a symbol of national pride. The opening of Terminal 3 only serves to further reinforce that notion.
The good thing about Changi Airport, and I think a lot of pilots and airline operators that fly into Singapore would agree with me, is that it's a very simple concept because you have Terminal 3 and Terminal 2 that's side by side and is joined together with Terminal 1. And they rest just abreast of the two runways which straddle them. And all you need to know is find out which terminal you're parked at. It's a very simple system of finding your way there. When you compare that to some airports which are very big but at the same time very complex in structure, it can be quite confusing just to find your way to your parking bay. So T3, in spite of its size, it's relatively simple to understand, it's not confusing.
Airports are expected to grow and you should be able to accommodate whatever future growth that is expected. I think for Changi to be what it is today, it's almost inconceivable when they started with the plan that we should have moved Paya Lebar to Changi. But as you can see now, the tremendous growth and reputation of Changi Airport, of course, we'll then take it to greater heights to make sure that Changi stays on top in terms of world station, provide world-class service for passengers from all over the world.
I enjoy T3. I think T3 is an airport that I look forward to flying to because it's home, and especially if you're on a particularly long trip, it's always nice to come back home. And the moment you get off the aeroplane and you step onto the airport, you know you have arrived. When you come to a country, the first time you get to experience the city or the country is from the airport. And that's why I guess it's so important to build an airport that gives you a very good impression. When you step off the aeroplane, this is your first experience in the city. If the airport is airy and it's bright, there's a lot of people, nice shops to visit, it gives you a wonderful experience. It starts your journey on a very high note.
In order to fully capitalize on the continuing growth of global air travel, the authorities are planning well ahead. It already has in store plans for a fourth terminal for Changi Airport, although it won't be built anytime just yet. From the small but efficient airport in Kallang to the sprawling new terminal in Changi, Singapore has perfectly positioned itself to remain at the forefront of airport design. With the introduction of mega-sized aeroplanes like the Airbus A380 and the sheer increasing volume of air travel, the airport architects face multiple challenges of coping with rising expectations and advancing technology. Whatever the future brings, we hope Changi Airport will always be imbued with that sense of adventure and longing that comes from being the start or end of a voyage through the sky.